Hi, I'm Ali Drew, and this is my co-star Ouney. This is Under the Lights, the boxing talk show for Sportology TV.
Guys, welcome to Under the Lights, the boxing sports show where we talk everything boxing. We talk about the Twitter beefs, the boxing news, and every new fights that are going to happen. We've got special guests coming on, and none bigger than what we've got on today. I don't even know how to big up this guy because everyone knows him in the industry. Everyone knows him in the combat sport world. A well-versed journalist, somebody who's been around the UFC scene and the boxing scene for decades. He's called Russell Crowe by Tyson Fury, none other than Gareth A.Davies. Gareth, how you doing?
Ali and Una, great to be on with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. How are you?
Really well, as you can see. I'm like chilled out. It's a mid-afternoon. We're waiting for the next heat wave that the government or the Met Office keep telling us about it, that never comes. And fight sports is back, so there's at least something to get our teeth into, rather than just people having Twitter and Instagram spats, or the daily round of exercise with Tyson Fury and his wife Paris.
Gareth, you're looking quite relaxed. You're looking like lockdown's been good for you.
It has, at my age and with my health. I had a bit of a health scare a year ago. It's been a really welcome pause, but like you, I miss being on the circuit. I'm hyperactive. I love traveling the fight world. It's an existence that a lot of people would love to have. So, the sooner we can get back to it and we're allowed to attend events, the better, really. But paused, patient, but really ready to get going again whenever they press the button, really.
Sounds good.
Well, boxing did return to the UK last weekend after 118 days of not having any boxing. Frank Warren, the BT Studios, obviously behind closed doors. What did you think of the show?
Well, I've just downed my coffee tequila. As you know, we don't know if that's true or not, but it probably is. I don't think you were recording when I did the tequila in there. What did I make of it? We saw 2 or 3 very promising young fighters on there. Brad Foster, I love. He converted from kickboxing 4 years ago. I thought he was terrific on the night. Young Chamberlain looks very good. Adelaide looks like a really fun heavyweight who's going to join the rising prospects. The show overall, it is what it is at the moment. I miss boxing with crowds. I think it's a very emotive sport. It's a very sensual sport in lots of ways, sensual, visceral, emotive, however you want to describe it. And I think the passion of people when they see people fighting adds to the energy of a contest, of an atmosphere, of an ambience. So it does lack something, but in all the other ways, we're getting to see the background to what people do when they're having spars in the gym, when it's all quiet in there. And that's what we're watching. We're hearing the sound of body shots, the instructions from corners, people breathing even. But I think it's toughest for the boxers at the moment, because I don't think they're used to going into live fights under these kind of scenarios. I congratulate the Boxing Board of Control on getting back. Congratulate BT Sport and Frank Warren for getting it all moving, and George Warren and Andy Ayling. Because I spoke to the Boxing Board all the way over the last 3.5, 4 months, and they've been really responsible in the way they've done it. And thankfully, they did the whole process. There wasn't a positive test. People were properly tested by people in PPE equipment at home before they came there as well. I think it's really responsible the way they've done it. I spoke to the chief executive of the testing company earlier today, and he talked me through the procedure. And hopefully, somewhere soon down the line, there'll be a system of testing fans as they come in quickly with bio passport so that they can get them into arenas. That's what I'd like to see.
Gareth, I just wanted to talk about the return of boxing, and I'm not just talking about Frank's show. I'm talking about, we saw Shakur Stevenson, fight a couple of weeks ago. Top Rank pulled out a show, and they have been doing for the coming weeks. They're all going to be putting out shows. But then I look at, for example, the UFC.
Gareth, yeah. I wanted you to know I hadn't gone bald in the pandemic. Sorry, I distracted you by my movement. I've not gone bald during the pandemic.
I was just saying the sort
I'm
of
listening.
the UFC cards that are being pulled out at the moment during COVID-19 have been phenomenal. We look at Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. We even looked at this Saturday UFC 251, Masvidal Usman. We're going to have Cormier, Stipe Miocic. We've got big fights happening in the UFC, but boxing doesn't seem to be producing them fights. We know that Dubois, Joyce can't even be made in this period at this present time. Just talk to me about the differences in making fights for both sports.
Yeah, you're right. They have different algorithms and the makeup is different, how they do them. And look, Bob Arum's first few fights, cards back, were like small hall shows in some ways with a smattering of the odd star. You know, so was last Friday night's Queensbury Promotions event on BT Sport. It's just showcasing a few people. It's different for the UFC. They're a plain and simple pay-per-view model. They have a different fan base. A lot of their fans just follow the UFC and don't really follow a lot of other sports. They're very involved in the storylines. Boxing has a different rhythm, a different momentum. I think the way it had to come back was just to make it relevant again on the sporting landscape. Okay. Start to satisfy the broadcasters. And remember, the UFC were quite Machiavellian about the way they did it, quite tenacious. They went to a state which wasn't policing COVID very well. Look at Florida now, you know. You look at places that they exploited the gaps where they could, you know, by going to Florida early on. They needed their pay-per-view events. They need to nourish their bank balances and satisfy their massive deal with ESPN, which is using them as one of their drivers to get their subscribers for ESPN Plus. So we will see it, and you can see it in the graduation of Eddie Hearn's cards. He's going to try it for 3 weeks, and in the last week, Matchroom Square Garden, as I've called it the whole way along, it really is that he's going to have that big card at the end. Alexander Povetkin and Dillian Whyte is a decent fight, definitely, and it signals things for the heavyweight division later on in the year, and it lets us see where Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder have to go next. Katie Taylor, Delphine Persoon is a big fight as well. It's a popular fight that'll draw people to the event. But what the UFC does, quite instinctively, like they bring in Jorge Masvidal on 6 days' notice. It was a boring, damp squib in the end because he ran out of puff after 7 minutes because he'd only had a small camp and he'd travelled away across there and he was all bluster and bravado when it came down to it. But the building models are different. Everyone's a shooting star in the UFC. Everyone has their moment. The build is longer in boxing. And we might have to, I say we, but they might have to look to adopt and adapt and get the bigger fights on quicker after the lockdown in boxing. We may need to see that change because the world may be a different place. The big fights, pay-per-view fights, may need to go on behind closed doors rather than waiting 10, 12 months for them to happen. But we'll see that roll out in the next 8, 12, 16 weeks, definitely. Or they'll find places to take those guys and they'll get a crowd in there in that way. Like they'll take Fury and Wilder to Saudi if they have to. And they'll almost certainly take Fury and Anthony Joshua to Saudi first. That's almost guaranteed, you know. Just
talking about Dillian Whyte there. The news broke out this week. He put out a statement on Twitter, on his social media platforms, that he had split with his long-term trainer, Mark Tibbs. Mark then did an interview with a boxing channel. Sort of, I don't know if you agreed with what happened. I'm not sure if you've seen the interview, but they don't seem to have left on mutual terms. Just talk to me about that breakup and what you see from your eyes. What's actually happened?
Well, I'm just mystified, frankly, because Mark Tibbs from the great Tibbs family. Jimmy Tibbs, his father, was a brilliant trainer who was even a sparring partner of Muhammad Ali years ago when Ali was over in the UK fighting Harry Carpenter. Not fighting Harry Carpenter, fighting... God, lockdown really has affected me. Harry Carpenter was a commentator. I mean the great Henry Cooper, not Harry Carpenter. Same H and C, but completely the wrong person. Basically, I was quite surprised. I mean, the reason that Dillian gave was that Mark didn't want to go to training camp for a long period because he's got a young family. That's what I read. I haven't spoken to Dillian or Mark about it. I don't want to make a major judgment on it because I know both men and I'd like to speak to them. But it seems to me that Dillian might want a different strategy.
Okay.
But I'm personally surprised because I thought Mark was very good for him. And Dillian's really come on as a fighter. I think it's 5 years they've been together.
Yeah.
You know, certainly he's been there through thick and thicker with him as a trainer. I mean, I'm just surprised. It can only mark what is going to be either a new strategy from Dillian Whyte. He feels like he's there technically. Yeah, again, I'm just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know? But clearly my memory is broke at the moment, but that's another story.
We'll blame the tequila on that one.
What tequila?
Another story that's come out in the last couple of days is the farmer that has put the allegations out has withdrawn the bribe allegations for Tyson Fury or the Fury family, and he's actually said that he's just taken them back, and whatever his reason for that, he's now saying, you know, that's not what happened. What's your thoughts on this whole debacle that's been going on?
Well, I mean, you know, every twist and turn, every little skin pinch is a massive story with Tyson Fury, isn't it? I mean, if he's not dipping his hands in petrol, yeah, which is the story he gave to me that night in his mansion in Vegas, that he'd been dipping his hands in petrol to harden his hands. He's taking meat from a dodgy meat, you know, from a farmer who says he is giving it to him and then he isn't. I mean, I can't. The truth is, that story when it broke was handled by, I think, the Telegraph's news correspondent, because I was actually on holiday. But I remember reading it and thinking, why on earth would, because the story broke in the Mail, the farmer sold the story to the Daily Mail, first of all, didn't he, or the Mail on Sunday. And I was thinking, why would you tell the story that you'd gone to the promoter of the fighter 2 years later to say to the promoter, I never got my 25 grand for lying? So you've kind of made yourself look like a little bit of a fool already, you know? And then you sell your story to the papers. It was all very odd, you know? I mean, I still find it odd that I met with Tyson Fury in Marbella in the middle of 2017, and he was still 28. So 2016, and he was still 28 stone.
Right, yeah.
And I went for a run on the beach with him, and I could stay up with him because remember the Weebles wobbled, but they don't fall down because they were so round. It was almost like, he was like, do you remember, Mr. Potato Head? Yeah, he looked like Mr. Potato Head. Nothing about Tyson Fury, and he suddenly developed his dad's voice, you know. But he had a little problem with his throat, and that's all it was. It wasn't anything to do with his weight. And he was suddenly talking like that, you know, but with a Lancastrian accent, traveller's accent. But nothing ever surprises me. Like you say, he calls me Russell Crowe. Nothing ever. He turned up as Batman, remember?
Yeah, he did.
You know, and he fought with his cousin who was dressed as the Joker. I mean, nothing ever surprises me. He tells us after 12 rounds of defense against Deontay Wilder, having shed the weight of Melania Trump, or 140 pounds, that he's going to go in there and smash Deontay Wilder's face in, and you go, okay. And he does it. Yeah. You know, nothing ever. I know I'm not really being journalistic about this. I'm kind of, you know, it's more. It's like being in a comic strip, like an actual, you know, comic strip with him. It's like a fantasy story. It doesn't seem real. Then he's in the WWE. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember being in Soho with Tyson one day, and went to see him we had a little sing-song in the hotel. We made a little video and stuff in the interview. And I came out, and is it Jason Momoa? Jason Momoa, who played the big tall guy with long hair. He's like a 6'6" actor.
I'm not sure. I think I know who. Has
Big
he got?
handsome dude. Big handsome dude. He was Mermaid Man or whatever he was. Do you know the guy?
I know who you mean? Yeah, I do.
Well, no, he comes into the hotel. It was the Soho Hotel. It's one of those sneaky little, very bespoke hotels tucked right in the West End, and like all the stars stay there. And we've been there to see Tyson, and he was advertising the WWE stuff, you know, before he fought whoever it was and beat up and knocked him out. And Jason Momoa was there, and he said, "Oh, are you friends of Tyson?" As I was walking out with David Lorca, actually, me and David Lorca had been to see him. And we were like, yeah, we're mates of Tyson. Yeah, he said, where is he? And he goes in, he's giving Tyson a big hug, and he's like doing this, and so the guy's, you know, there's obviously the mental health story as well, but the guy's resonance is very wide now. And, you know, I remember Ben Davison telling me, his ex-trainer telling me, that Ben took over Tyson's social media accounts ahead of that first Wilder fight for about 2.5-3 weeks, and he controlled the social media accounts. And he said, Gareth, I've got to tell you, and I've never really said this out loud before, he said, there's literally hundreds of people a day sending in private messages on Twitter and Instagram saying, you really helped me through saving my life. You really stopped me from committing suicide. You really inspired me. How did you lose 10 stone and come back and fight one of the most fearsome punchers in history? I really appreciate the fact that you were being so low, because I know that feeling myself, and it's made me think I can really get over my shit. And for that reason, whatever Tyson Fury does right, whatever he does wrong, in my view, and you know, I've known him a long time, and we are close, he and I, and there's a lot of trust. He has really inspired a lot of people around the world, and it's not mythological, that it's real, and I think we should celebrate that, you know.
I was actually.
But as for the farmer, who knows?
I was going to say, your relationship with Tyson Fury is, from the time I've entered boxing, which was about 6 years ago, you've always had this sort of comical relationship with Tyson Fury. You both, you know, even in press conferences, you're cracking jokes with each other. You know, that famous press conference when he came in as Batman, he called you Russell Crowe when you came back in.
No, and then he told me to sit down because the question wasn't good enough.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I keep seeing that relationship, and it's just becoming better and better. I see you in his mansion in Vegas. Just talk to me how that relationship sort of grew.
Well, the truth is, I went to his very first fight in 2008, and I sat with his family, and before, you know, and I followed his career, and I spent time in caravans with him and his cousin Huey and his dad and his uncle when they were preparing for Klitschko. I was around all of that process. I've reached out to him personally when I knew he was not well and he put loads of weight on, and said, look, you know, a lot of us go through a lot of shit, you know, and like, if you want to ring me at 2 a.m, nothing to do with work, you need someone to talk to, and it's that moment and there's no one available, just fucking ring me, you know, just ring me, you know, and I'll speak to you, you know. And I think there's a level of trust, and that's all it is, you know. I mean, you know, we all have things that go on in our lives. We all have moments when things can go right and wrong, and you know, sometimes we make the wrong decisions, sometimes we make the right decisions. But at the end of the day, you know, our relationships and our friendships and our access to people, certainly with work, is really important. But the longer you do it, the more you're on a journey with other people, and the more you're sharing space and time and going through emotions with people. And it's like that with all of us. And the older you get, you know, I'm a granddad now, and the older you get, the more you appreciate that for younger people. And, you know, I'm the same age as his dad, even though I look 20 years younger than his dad. And I'm on record saying that, John.
We're not starting no beef off on this show.
Well, it's an age-looking beef, John, if you want one. Yeah. We'll have the age argument beat. No, but it's just trust. It's just knowing you know, and and you know, it's just the way I operate, and that's the relationship is just, we get on. I think if he wasn't a boxer and I wasn't a journalist and we knew each other, I think we'd be mates anyway. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And like, because you know, I'm a bit mad anyway, and he's a bit mad, and it kind of works, you know.
Well, to move on to another bit of news, that Jarrell Baby Miller has failed another drugs test. Is there any hope for the future of him in boxing?
I don't think so. I really don't think so, Ali. I think, you know, he had the 3 tests with Anthony Joshua last year in the space of, 4 days the tests were. He'd already tested positive as a kickboxer years ago. Again, I've known Jarrell Miller for years and years. I knew him when he was a kickboxer, when he fought Mirko Krokop in Glory. I was there in the Forum in Los Angeles covering the fight night. I was a guest of the event, you know, when Glory was going big time. And then he tests positive a 3rd time. He's clearly got a psychological issue. It's a crutch for him when he's preparing for fights. A lot of people, probably myself included, feel that he's probably always used them to get himself up for a fight, but we don't know that. And when you hear the likes of Bob Arum, who was on my show last week on Talk Sport on Saturday night, saying that if you deliberately take performance-enhancing drugs, you are basically attempting murder. That's what, because if you do kill someone, if you do irreparably damage someone, it goes to court. It's going to be a manslaughter. It's going to be a manslaughter case. So, because you're knowingly taking drugs that's going to enhance a weapon that you will use against your opponent, which is you. You know, you've enhanced yourself. It's a very, very difficult situation. But I think that Eddie Hearn, having said he would never let Jarrell Miller box on any of his cards again, and that Miller still owes him money, and Bob Arum saying he will never box on his cards, and he thinks that taking PEDs knowingly is attempted murder. I think, you know, I think around the world, even though there isn't a world governing body that can ban someone for a long time, I think he'll find it very, very difficult to get a license again. What I'd like to see him do, and someone mentioned this to me on my Twitter, just not to go too deep into this, but why don't they encourage him to take more drugs, test him, see if he is stronger, those kind of things, and then get him to whistle blow as much as possible. If Jarrell Miller could do anything good for boxing now, it would be to whistle blow on how, who, where, when, why he was taking all these things and get proper treatment for his needs to take them, because that's clearly what it is, you know. It's like I needed to drink a lot of tequila before coming on with you two, just to keep me sane.
You're doing a good job as well, Gareth, to be honest, because I've seen you so wacky in some of these press conferences. Surprised you're not on drugs, mate. But yeah, you're doing a good job.
I'm not on drugs. I'm just on it when I'm at those events. I am just on it. The drug is being buzzed up by our job, you know.
Well, just before you go, I want to ask you about the Canelo fight, or his possible opponent. Who do you think that he's going to actually sort of have as his opponent, but who do you think he should? Who do you think deserves it?
Well, I think ideally, I mean, I don't really understand why Billy Joe Saunders says he's not ready for September. My only understanding is he's probably not getting the money he originally thought he was going to get. And that's why he's pulled out, and he's going to wait for his opportunity again. Because I understood he was, even though it wasn't officially announced, he was going to earn in the region of 7 to 8 million for that fight. Wow. Yeah. It was a huge payday, huge. I'd still like to have seen that fight, because I think it's a very good technical challenge for Canelo. I think Billy Joe Saunders is his toughest opponent, super middleweight. Obviously, John Ryder and Callum Smith, who's the #1 in the division by Ring Magazine standards, would both be good alternatives. I think is Derevianchenko in the frame as well?
I think he's actually going to be fighting Jamal Charlo.
Oh, that's just been announced today, hasn't it? Yeah, Charlo, that's right. Yeah. So, but listen, why not just bloody press on and have the last Golovkin fight then? You know, that's who I think. If it's not Billy Joe Saunders, not Callum, John Ryder's a potential opponent because of his great performance against Callum Smith in Liverpool, where you could argue that he won that fight by a round. Get the Golovkin fight on. Get them together, get them annoyed with each other, get some Zoom interviews, let them slag each other off, generate a bit of interest, get some farmers involved, get Tyson Fury involved in a Batman outfit, or maybe the Joker's outfit this time, promote the shit out of the fight and put it on, you know, every channel possible and just try and sell that fight. We've already read that DAZN are probably going to pay Canelo less for the September bout anyway, you know, because he 28 million a fight he gets, with them. 28, because it's $35 million a fight, isn't it? So 28 million quid. You're going to have to take a pay cut, son. Loads of people are furloughed to 80%. It's going to happen in boxing. Bob Arum's mentioned it. Frank Warren's mentioned it to me. Eddie Hearn and Barry Hearn have all mentioned it to me in conversations during lockdown, that there may be the prospect of these guys that are used to earning mega bucks just taking a hit. And that's just life. That's economy. That's inflation, you know, or deflation.
Well, Gareth, do you see that happening with a lot of top elite boxers, that they're willing to take a pay cut? Because
they will eventually.
Do you reckon that would happen? They'll be happy?
Yeah, they will, because if we can't get all this talk about getting 15,000 people 4 seats apart into the Raiders Stadium in Vegas, which is 60,000 seater, you think they're really going to sit 4 seats apart once they've had 4 or 5 beers? You know, when I spoke to the CEO of the testing company today, what they said they might create is bio bubbles of 100 people sitting together. There's ways of doing that, you know. That's one of the things they're looking at. I don't want you using this before my story comes out, but no, I'm just kidding. But there's going to be, it's not going to be literally spaced 4 seats apart. But I think the point is, huge gates of 100,000 people, I don't think are going to happen again. I don't think we'll have a Wembley Stadium till there's been a vaccine, until we've been through a period where there isn't the scaredemic that there is now. And listen, I think it's right to have a scaredemic as well, because this is really serious, this thing. We haven't experienced something like this in modern society. So I think, you know, not to go on too much about it, I do think there'll come a crucial point where the axis will change. Sorry, my drying machine's going off in the background the whole time. It's annoying me as well. But there's going to come a point where the equation is going to be, or the formula is going to be, am I prepared to wait another 12 months to have that many people in an arena? Or am I prepared to go to a smaller arena with just a few people and take a hit, but just have to go on what the pay-per-view does? And it's going to make them have to sell the fights more. So the very big, I mean, Dillian White urged this the other day. He said he might have 2 in lockdown, 2 big fights. Good for him, I say, because this is the new normal. Adopt, adapt. Look what you guys are doing. A brilliant new show. Adopt and adapt. It's what you've got to do. You've got to survive, and then you've got to thrive. You can't just survive and say, oh, I'm not going to fight for 15 months. Only probably Conor McGregor in the world can get away with that. Or maybe Tyson Fury, and maybe Anthony Joshua. But Canelo needs to feed the 30 million that watch him in Mexico every time he fights, because they ain't going to be happy with him not fighting for a year. And look, he is fighting in September. It will be arguably with a crowd of 1,000 or whatever it'll be by then, or 4,000. You've got to get on with it. Get on with it.
Gareth, before you go, your YouTube channel, I'm subscribed to that. I know you do bits and bats on that. You were in Tyson's mansion and there's videos on there. Why are you not putting up more videos? Well, that channel seems to be the place for me when I need a bit of boxing knowledge. Well, what's going on with that channel?
I've done 17 shows with Dan Rayfield during lockdown.
Okay.
You clearly haven't been subscribed.
No, I have. I watched a couple of few, and then after that, they didn't come up. So maybe I subscribed somehow.
I have put sporadic things up there, but as you know, I'm not largely a videographer, which is what I call YouTubers. Yeah. I know it's becoming mainstream. I'm busy enough as it is because I'm radio, newspaper, television, and YouTube, and Twitter, and Instagram, and Zoom. It's fucking endless. Yeah. And I've got a life to lead as well. You know what I mean? So, you know, dating and all that kind of stuff, yeah?
Are you single, Gareth? For the ladies out there, are you single? The ladies want to know.
All the ladies out there, I am single.
Yes. Okay. Just what's your Twitter again? What's your Instagram and Twitter again?
I'm Gareth.A.Davies on Instagram. For some reason, I've asked them to verify me like 5 times, and I must have done something wrong, but I can't get the blue tick. I'm sure that will come. I'm going to get someone else to do that. Gareth.A.Davies. And I don't do a lot of Instagram. I used to just use it as a selfie thing till I understood what it was. But I am doing a few more videos on there, actually. PRs have been cracking the whip at me saying, your videos on there are good, do them. And people like little videos. People want to be just entertained at the end of the day. Twitter is at Gareth A. Davies DT, my old Daily Telegraph Twitter. And that's where all my work goes. And there's also GarethADavies.com, my own website, which is run by my nephew. And most of my work goes up there as well. So, and a little clip of this will go up there if I make the final cut on the show. I've tried to be entertaining. It doesn't always work.
You're the main attraction, Gareth. We're just mere puppets. You're the main attraction. Gareth, thank you so much. Wanted to thank you for coming on to our first show for Under the Lights. It'd be a pleasure if we could get you on again in the future, because we know your boxing knowledge is vast. So we would like to have you on again. I think Ali's got a few words before we wrap this up.
Yeah, it's been great speaking to you. You're going to come back. It's been an okay experience for you.
I'll have a look at the edit before I come back. No, I'd love to come on. It's been a pleasure to speak to both of you. A few more questions from you next time, Ali, I think, as well.
No problem. No problem. Thank you so much, Gareth.
Pleasure, guys. Absolute pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you very much.
See you again soon.
Guys, welcome back to part 2 of Under the Lights with my co-host, Ali Drew.
So we had a great part 1. Now on to part 2. We have one of the most exciting upcoming heavyweights, Michael Hunter, joining us. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm good. What's going on, y'all?
Michael, how's it going out there? How are you? Are you in Vegas? Is that where you're based?
Yeah, I'm in Vegas, yeah.
How's things out there?
Really, really hot.
Okay.
Like, can't touch the steering wheel hot.
You know what? You don't get that problem in the UK, man. You don't get that problem at all in the UK.
Like, you can literally scramble eggs on the sidewalk hot.
Ideal.
Hot.
Do you just not go outside much when it's like that?
Yeah, but I mean, even a few minutes is like, it seems like hours. It's like really, really hot. Not sweat easy. I mean, good thing that it's dry heat,
Okay.
but it's just, so, it's beaming, it's very, very, it's frying up everybody.
Michael, how's the COVID-19 period been for you? A lot of people have been indoors. So what have you been doing over the last couple of months?
I've just been very busy actually with right before the whole me being a free agent thing. I kind of knew about that, and I had been setting up, trying to already kind of setting up for this situation. So I was working really hard, and now I'm kind of more at a relaxed state. I still have a lot of offers and a lot of things going on with me, but yeah, I'm just trying to get a fight here. And the COVID, as far as me personally, I haven't had any problems. I haven't stopped traveling. I haven't slowed down traveling. I've actually been a little more busier than normal. Yeah, so.
Well, as you say, you are a free agent now because you recently parted ways with Matchroom. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't by choice, but probably that by design. That it happened the way it did. I had a great run with DAZN, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for them. I just think it was not beneficial for them to keep me in the company any longer, and me climb the ranks. And also, they had a lot of different that's from all the different stuff that's happening, the COVID and them losing their belts to Andy, and them having a fight to get their belts back. It's just a lot of different stuff that happened, and I'm not the only person that got cut. There's a lot of, they had to. I wouldn't say that they were running out of money, but I felt like they had to re-strategize, and people like myself that were under them, me and people alike were kind of cut out of the deal.
Michael, I wanted to ask you how that news came to you. Did Eddie get in touch? Have you and Eddie been in conversation?
Nah, not really.
Okay.
I kind of seen what it was from the jump, just from the first deal that we done, and the relationship that we had. It was, they were good people, but, they didn't take or embrace me like they did their other fighters. And that was definitely clear. But yeah, so there was really very little conversation. I guess they, somebody tends to know you're, doing something that might not be totally cool. They kind of like try not to say anything about it or whatever, but it is what it is. I had a great run with the DAZN, and I've never had no bad things come from the zone. I've been in a harsher environment. So,
what possibilities now are on the table for you? What options are there, and when are you looking to fight now?
There's a lot of different offers on the table. I pretty much feel like I could pretty much go pretty much anywhere. I just think it's I think right now is just to figure out what I actually want. There's a lot of different things. I'm doing exactly what I know I need to do, and not, I don't really have too many options. But this is probably the most options I've had in a while. So, I'm kind of like being slow and picking at it, because when, once you pick, it's like, that's it for a little bit, So, yeah, I'm just slowly picking my, making sure I have the right decisions and not rushing into things, especially because the whole COVID thing has happened. It's like not mandatory for people to fight. It's having hard times for people to even get on shows right now. So I think it's everybody and everything is going slow right now. So I just caught up in the wave with everybody.
Michael, does it benefit you actually being a free agent for a while? There's a lot of things out there, especially somebody like Mikey Garcia. In the past was a free agent. He was appearing on both shows. He was appearing with top ranked shows and also PBC at times. Do you see that sort of strategy working for yourself as well? Maybe being a free agent, you can sort of put yourself on with both parties if you needed to. Yeah,
that's something that I'm gonna exercise as long as I can until they come with the right deal. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of I really I like that approach. I don't know how long or if that is the best approach for me, but it's definitely an option.
Well, the heavyweight division is very exciting at the moment, and there's been talk that the Fury AJ fight is set for next year. Obviously, we're not sure. Basically, we don't even know if boxing is going to be back normally by then. But how do you sort of see that fight going if it does happen?
I think I see the fans winning that night. That's pretty much it. I really think it's hard to say as far as in the ring being competitive, but I think that's just going to be a great fight for British boxing, and it's just an iconic fight for you guys. So I think, and for the for boxing as a whole. So I think it's just an exciting time, and good things can only happen out of it. I'm not sure exactly. I think Tyson Fury would pull it off. That would be my bet, just because of the boxing ability and the experience and all the backing and all the stuff that he is. Because Tyson, Anthony Joshua, he's global, but he's more bigger in the British, in the UK, and where is Tyson Fury is kind of global. He's kind of touched a lot of different avenues. So he's into wrestling and he's doing a lot of different stuff. So yeah, I see Tyson Fury probably edging it out just a little bit.
Michael, just looking at them two fighters, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, they're making lots of money. They're going to be in the new UFC game. There's this whole sort of hype about both of them fighters being in there. Tyson Fury made, I think, from the combat sport world, he made more money than Conor McGregor last year. When you see all these things, how much motivation does that give you to make it to the top and, you know, compete with these big people?
You know, I think I think that's all good for boxing, but you know, I really compete with myself. You know, I really don't. I kind of just stay in my own lane. I really don't really look at what everybody else is doing, because a lot of these guys are doing these things and having a hard time with their mental issues or with their emotional issues. You know, I'm more about being happy internally. You know. And mentally and you know, helping people that have these type of situations and these problems. So kind of my approach is a little different. You know, I think it's really good and it's all the best for them. But I just feel like, you know, there's certain things that I probably, you know, wouldn't get the opportunity to do or I wouldn't do because of my approach, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, I definitely respect it.
What makes you happy, Michael? You said obviously certain things make you happy. What makes you happy? What would be like, you know, happiness for you?
Oh, just life, you know what I'm saying? Realizing, you know, the immensity of life, you know what I'm saying? And the grand scheme of things, we tend to be caught up in our own mental box, you know what I'm saying? And not sticking to reality. You know, we tend to think about stuff instead of knowing about stuff. You know, I always use, you know, putting on your pants for an example. Like, do you think you could put on your pants, or do you know you could put on your pants? Mm-hmm. You know, so I think if we, as humans, started to go with what we know and separate from what we think, you know, the world will start to, you know, even itself out a little bit.
And as a fan of, like, a boxing fan, so you know, taking the sort of competing side out of it, who are your top 5 pound-for-pound fighters at the moment?
In no particular order, I would have to say my father, Roy Jones, Sugar Ray Robinson. As a kid, I grew up. I love Prince Nassim and his entrances. You know, that's something that I try to take after. You know, there's so many though. There's so many fighters. There's so many people. You know, that I could just go on and on and on. Kid Chocolate, Jack Johnson, and they have everybody. You know, they have different, you know, reasons and why. You know what I'm saying? And the adversities they had to come through. You know, sometimes we kind of tend to think it's about the fight, but you don't know who's backing you, and you know, it's a team thing. You know what I'm saying? So I think I like to give credit to the people that are the rawest, you know, that had the hardest time but went through, you know, and got to the highest experience. Even if that was just a world title and they didn't get bigger than the belts, they maybe just got one title instead of unified, but they had to come from so far. So I like to just look at it like that. So there's really not, I love Roy Jones growing up and Prince Nassim and my father. So those are like my main
point off that, Michael, not every fighter is a boxing fan. I've spoken to a lot of fighters in the past. They don't generally watch a lot of boxing. From what you've just told me there, you seem like, you know a little bit of the history of boxing, certain fighters in certain eras. Out of them big names, all them great names that you just said, who do you believe had it the hardest?
Had it the hardest?
Yeah, so like maybe like
I would say one, Jack Johnson.
Okay.
I would have to say he had it the hardest, but he did it so gracefully. So I mean, just in that time, you know, that would be that would be a hard one to deal with. I think, you you know, like the Cinderella Man, like, you know, people like that back then. There was just certain, you know, people that we probably, you know, or I don't even, you know of, that have went through some hardship. Yeah, but I would definitely say Jack Johnson. I know I'm missing a few right now. I'll probably think of right away as soon as we get off this. But yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Ali?
Perfect. Well, it was great to speak to you. It was
Right.
great to have an insight into you and your personality. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And we'd love to have you on again in the future.
Yeah, likewise. Let me know, and hopefully I have some more updates about the fight and, you know, what's going on. I really do got some big things coming up. I just, you know, they're still in the foundation area, so I can't really speak too
Not
much
say
on.
too much.
Yeah, but hopefully you guys will see me out that way a little bit soon, real soon.
Michael,
Great, can't wait. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for episode 1 of Under the Lights. Had 2 fantastic guests, loads more coming up, lots of shows coming up. So make sure you stay tuned, leave some comments, and make sure you subscribe. Join us next time.